Let's talk rebuilds, Joe. You want to do that? Because that's a word everyone's so damn afraid in the Bay Area. I say the word rebuild, people are like, oh my God, don't say that. It's like Voldemort in Harry Potter. Don't say that word. It's too scary. Why are we so afraid of it? Why? Like the Bay Area should be most accustomed with rebuilds. We've seen them. We've seen them with the Niners. We've seen them with the Warriors. We've seen them with the Giants.
I think there's a negative connotation because of the Oakland A's.
Is that why?
And the irony is I would argue that they're probably one of the best models of reshaping and redefining your team every handful of years and basically letting you realize that there's always the next wave of guys.
Correct.
Even though it's an extreme example.
It is.
And it's not probably the most customer-friendly way to do business. But I think that they've proven year after year after year, over like a 25-year period, we could reflip this and reshape this roster every 3 to 4 years.
I think we could all agree, and that's a great point. A rebuild looks different sport to sport. One rebuild for the NBA is not the same as Major League Baseball, not the same for the NFL. I think we could all count in each league the handful of teams that are truly rebuilding right now, right? The Colorado Rockies have been rebuilding for a minute, right?
I mean,
it feels like a perpetual rebuild.
Since Matt Holliday got traded.
The Los Angeles Angels. I think those are the two teams, the two poster childs for both leagues in Major League Baseball, the Angels and the Rockies.
And the common denominator is that they've been just god-awful forever.
Not only can they not bring in young prospects and develop them, when they do go out and get free agents or make big splash signings, they whiff. Chris Bryant on line 1, Anthony Rendon on line 2, right? Now, the Angels is probably a little worse because you had maybe two of the greatest players we've ever seen, Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, and you still couldn't do anything. So, again, it goes back to, even if you have good players in baseball, it doesn't mean you can't still suck, as we're learning right now with the San Francisco Giants. They have some good players, but it's not enough. How do you define a rebuild, Joe? Do you have like a loose definition? Because I know I have one. I want to hear yours first.
You already have one?
I have one.
Well, let me hear yours.
I don't think you could have more than one star player on a team. In order for it to be a rebuild, you can't have more than one star player. That's my definition. So the Angels are a good example of this, as I just brought up.
Yeah.
You can have a Mike Trout. You're still going to be in a rebuild. I think the Milwaukee Bucks have tried to sell us on it not being a rebuild. They're retooling around Giannis for years and years and years. Giannis has been the common denominator. They're not quite rebuilding, but they've been retooling. You saw it with LeBron when he first came to the Lakers. They were kind of doing a loose little rebuild around LeBron James. Now, what did they do after his first season? They totally traded all the young guys outside of Kyle Kuzma for Anthony Davis. So you could have one player and consider it a rebuild, one star, not more than one, though, and sell it as a rebuild. You can't do that. Now, that's different sport to sport, I understand, but that's my loose definition. You can't have more than one star player, and if you don't, then you're in a total rebuild because you got nothing, quite frankly. Like, I'm trying to think of an example in the NFL right now of a team that has like one really good player. The Raiders. How about that? Max Crosby, I think, is their only star right now. Right, Max? We would all agree?
Brock Bowers.
Yeah, he's a rising star. I love Brock Bowers. I get it. First team All-Pro as a rookie, Carter. Got hurt last year. We'll see. I love me some Brock Bowers. What did what's my guy Kubiak call him? A robot sent from heaven? Something like that. Kind of a weird phrase, but I love Brock Bowers. But that's kind of an example of an NFL team that you can have a star player and still be rebuilding. In basketball, it's a little different. If you have one star, you could sometimes still compete and contend, but that's my loose definition. I want to know what your definition of a rebuild is, because for a lot of people, it's different. And I think a lot of people are scared right now when it comes to either the Warriors or the Giants. Hell, people think that the Niners might be close to rebuilding here if things don't go well this season. We're just so scared in the Bay of rebuilds when we're looking at one right now in San Jose with the Sharks. They're coming, man. Was that rebuild that scary? Was taking those lumps that scary?
Until you got Macklin, yeah, it was for, I think, fans. See, I think what you're missing an element here. You use the word star, and I don't define it by star per se. To me, a rebuild is we have a group of guys that we think are our veteran leaders that are win now, and we don't believe in them to win now anymore. And we're picking either a soon-to-be-coming core that has yet to arrive or a different group of people on this team to build the rest of the team around. So, for example, in the current Giant landscape, we thought the team was going to be built around Chapman, Devers, Adames. Okay?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. So those three and all the other parts around them are going to be retooled or whatever. I just don't believe in them as a group to be building around and that they can be your centerpiece. Not that they're not all individually solid. They're solid. They're just, as a collection, they're not good enough. When you had Buster Posey, okay, Crawford, and Belt on an infield, that was a core to build around.
Yes.
Okay. I thought that they should have moved off some of these guys from this core and start that rebuilding process with another player or two to build around. You could throw in Hunter Pence that they added,
sure,
and guys like Matt Cain and Bumgarner. But at the core of it, there was those three. And we could take qualms with how deep they went into that. At one time, the Warriors were built around Monto Ellis.
Yeah.
Loosely, okay? And then they ripped off the Band-Aid and they said, we're not building our team around you anymore. All right. Essentially, we are actually going to go in the direction of, and we didn't know Steph Curry would be Steph Curry, but we're building around other guys, David Lee and whomever, and obviously Steph Curry right now. We'll see where this goes. They didn't even realize that they were in a complete build around Steph Curry at that moment in time. It ended up being that way.
Yeah.
But that's what they did. When the Warriors traded for Baron Davis, it was, we're building around Baron Davis.
Yeah.
And then they had Troy Murphy and Dunleavy, and then they're like, oh, actually, like, you guys don't fit with this guy. Get out of here. We're bringing in Stat Jack and Harrington. So notice how it's different. Like, it's loose. The Niners, were they rebuilding in 2015 with Jim Tomsula?
They were trying. They didn't sell it as a rebuild.
No, they were just mediocre.
They were just not good
and poor performing. Yeah. Right? They were lousy. I wouldn't even say mediocre. They were lousy.
They were not good,
and they were poor performing. There really wasn't a lot of guys to build around because everyone left. By 2017, they were 0-9 to start the year when Shanahan showed up. Were they quote unquote rebuilding, or were they just an awful team? They're an awful team. Then they landed Jimmy Garoppolo, and then you rebuilt the team around Jimmy Garoppolo. That's how I view it.
Okay.
All right. That's what. And then you got a core of guys, and they've kind of been building around that core of guys ever since. Have they retooled? Yeah. Like, we go from Sherman to Diamond or Lenore 4 or 5 years later, yep, right? Like, look around we went from Raheem Mostert and Breida and Coleman to now we've got CMC and George Kittle's a mainstay and Fred Warner's a mainstay, but other parts have kind of changed around those guys.
Dominic Pooney, et cetera. Yeah.
Right? For the last, 6 years, 7 years, who have the Yankees been built around?
Aaron Judge.
And? Stanton.
Well, and Garrett Cole's been
They brought him in, right? And other parts are moving on around him. I think one of the areas that the Boston Red Sox find themselves in right now, who are they built around?
It's a great question. I mean, Duran? Who's their best player right now? It was supposed to be Roman Anthony. He's kind of taking a regression, though, this season.
Well, they're not rebuilding. They're kind of just in no man's land, which is kind of where the Niners were when they didn't have stars in 2016, 2017. You're just kind of in no man's land.
And they had their guy, right? Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to pay him for whatever reason, and they traded him to the Dodgers, and it was very strange.
So you asked me about the Sharks. I think they were in no man's land until they landed Smith and Macklin. And then once you land Smith and Macklin, well, yeah, you've built everything around them. When they were tanking and losing, they had a strategy, but that wasn't a rebuild. It was, we're hollowed out. That's really what you were. You're hollowed out. At one point, the Bears were built around Justin Fields, were they not?
They were.
Okay. And then they were like, actually, no, we're pivoting from that. We're going in Caleb. Yeah. And year one, were they rebuilding or were they trying to build around Caleb Williams?
They were trying to build around Caleb. But remember, I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I thought that team was a playoff team in their rookie season, which is, in hindsight, laughable because their head coach is a defensive guy, didn't put him in a position to succeed.
But now what are they doing? They're rebuilding around.
Now they're building
coach and quarterback.
Coach and quarterback.
Right?
Yes.
Which is kind of what the Niners have done since the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. So I look at the Giants right now and I'm like, well, what are they rebuilding? They're building the team around Bryce Eldridge. Like, this is the most obvious thing in the world. And the question is like, all right, well, is Bryce enhanced or is he more complicated by the presence of Raffy Devers? Because that's the number one question.
It makes it more complicated.
I agree.
Yeah.
Not that he's like hampering him per se. It's just, it makes it difficult.
It's because both guys are a little, use the word hampered physically, and they just don't have the range to play other positions. They just
both
don't.
can only play DH and first
Correct.
base.
That's all they could play.
Right.
Because we've learned that Raffy's no longer a third baseman.
Right. So, and look, Raffy, I think, is the best of these three that we're going to bring up. Chapman. Are they hampered by Chapman? Not necessarily.
No. Well, as of late, definitely not.
Is he stunting Casey Schmidt's maybe overall development? But and before you answer, I'm not sure what Casey is. Is it 2 months? Is he, a guy that could get better? Is he a guy that is, going to fall back down to earth? I don't know. I really don't know. But this is all about rebuilding around Bryce. And this is where Logan Webb, I think, comes into play. Also building around Logan Webb. And maybe he's not the premium player who's my ace 2 years from now, 3 years from now, but he's in my rotation and he's in a group of dudes that I want to build the rest of this team around. I would throw Jung Hoo Lee in there. I'm ready to say that I'm ready to, he's one of my outfielders. Bryce is one of my infielders. And there's a lot of other things that are up in the air. If the Niners this year bottom out, let's say they suck, I think they have a lot of decisions to make. But I think one of them that is, staring them in the face is, are you building around Brock Purdy for the next 3 or 4 years? Or are you building around what Kyle Shanahan wants to do, and then he's going to switch it up and go to a different quarterback?